Welcome to the Embrace Your Destiny podcast. My name is Sandra Dawes and I'm your host. And today we're talking with Cheryl Lee. And Cheryl, welcome, first of all.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And to tell you a little bit about Cheryl, she is a clinical somatic educator, a movement coach, a yogini, a pain educator, brain enthusiast, mindfulness student, nature lover, cat fan, lifelong learner, and enabler. And she loves to learn and is fascinated by movement, pain, and the nervous system. And she's learned how to overcome the suffering of her own pain with movement, both vigorous and slow, education about pain and the nervous system, self-awareness, and mindset. And she now helps to empower others to self-efficacy. So welcome, Cheryl, and thanks for being a guest today.
Thank you. Thanks ever so much for having me.
And so if this is the first time you're listening to an interview, this is all about talking to women who have gone through some sort of trial or tribulation in their life and have made it through to the other side stronger in mind, body, and soul for it. So Cheryl, why don't you share with us your journey?
Okay, yeah, sure. So things kind of started to go massively downhill for me when I was pregnant with my little boy. And I was a teacher at the time. I was teaching full time and I had a management position in teaching and things were going well. I did have back pain intermittently, but it was okay. It was just kind of in the background and I could always manage it. And I exercised a lot, did yoga, and I was a Pilates teacher in training. So I had things that I was doing. And then I slipped and fell at work. I went flying, really hurt my hip and had a massive bleed.
And that was while you were pregnant?
That was while I was pregnant. Yeah. So it was quite horrifying. I went to A&E and they told me, well, we think you've probably lost the baby. So there was a kind of, oh my God, that was my second. So I'd already had a miscarriage. But there was something about the situation that the bleeding stopped while I was in A&E because I'd asked, could I lie down? Because they had me kind of stood in the waiting room and I said, look, I really just need to lie down and I just need to breathe and relax. And I did that. And actually the bleeding had stopped. So even though they told me this has probably happened, actually I didn't believe that I'd lost a child, and it turned out that I hadn't. So that was all good, apart from I ended up with this just incredible pain in my arm, my neck, and the hip that I'd gone down on in the fall. It was unrelenting, unremitting, and just all day, all night. And I started losing sleep and just could not get comfortable and had really, really, really poor sleep for the rest of my pregnancy. And actually, though, I mean, it sounds like it could have been awful, but I managed it really well because I did a lot of yoga, I did a lot of breathing techniques, and I had a pretty good mindset about the whole thing. So none of it really fazed me, although looking back, it was terrible. Anyway, it got worse when I had a really traumatic birth, and just about any intervention that you can have, I ended up with a C-section, and I was terribly ill, really, really poorly after the birth, and so was my son with reflux. So I was in hospital for only about 4 days, but I just couldn't move. It was agony to walk or to move. And my little boy seemed to be feeding well on the first day, but then, boom, everything started, and everything that he ever didn't get to that stage, anything he ever took down just came up straight away. Yeah. So he was kind of failing to thrive, as the midwife put it, and it was just quite a desperate situation, really. But again, it was quite enjoyable in a way because I stayed in bed with this little baby for 3 weeks, and I kind of got to bond with him in a way that I don't think I would have done what I wanted to do was be up and out and going to cafes and meeting other mums and, doing all that kind of thing. I just couldn't do it. I didn't see anybody. But I did spend all my time with this new, wonderful life. And I think there was a tremendous amount of bonding there. And I happened to read some fantastic books, a book called Why Love Matters, which is it's all about the bonding process and about the creation of oxytocin with skin-to-skin contact, and about how children or the young, whether it's animals or children, can fail to thrive without love and without care from their caregiver. So it just, I don't know, it changed things for me that I read that book at that time. So I managed to get up, and after about 3 or 4 weeks, I was kind of a little bit mobile, but still not great. Things were getting worse. And by about 4 months, looking back, I'd say I was clinically depressed, although at the time I didn't get a diagnosis of that. But I think when you phone the Samaritans for help, I think there's something really not right there, is there? So yeah, I'd phone the Samaritans because I had no idea how I was going to bring up this baby, bring up my son, how I could be a mother, because every move that I made was painful. It was just so hard to even go upstairs, to walk downstairs, to sleep. And I wasn't getting any sleep because of him, needing to feed him in the night. And so, yeah, I was just in a terrible state. And I just kind of wanted to disappear, really. I didn't want to harm myself, but I just wanted to not be there anymore. And kind of seriously suggested to my husband that it might be better if I just went away. And, it was that kind of level of really something psychologically wrong at that stage.
Right, because you were struggling with not feeling useful in a way, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly. I felt like I had no purpose. Well, I did have a purpose. I so wanted to be a mum and, to do everything with my son, but everything was just too much, too painful. And it just felt like the slightest thing would, throw me off course. And I wondered how I would ever be able to get up in the morning and go to work and hold down a job. And how would I go back into a school? I taught in a secondary school, teenagers and busy corridors. There's just no way that I felt I could go back to that. So, yeah, I was in a really, really bad place.
Oh, yeah, I think anything that makes you question your purpose is soul crushing in a way, right? Because you think that you have an idea of what you're here to do.
Yes.
And then when you're unable to do that anymore, you wonder what's the point? What's next?
Yes. Yeah. And so I thought, well, could I be useful if I went off and lived in a monastery and just helped in the garden or something? These were real thoughts going through my head. So it was, you can imagine just what kind of time that was. But I did start to see a counsellor and got my mindset back on track, and then started to get some help for, I thought I was going down the right route to get some help for the pain. And I think it might have sort of taken a turn, perhaps for the worse, because I was referred to the pain management centre. And the pain management specialist said to me, well, look, you're a Pilates teacher. So, with this in my background, I was a Pilates teacher. I was also by then, I was training to be a yoga teacher. So I was doing my yoga teacher training. So I knew a little bit about the body, and I couldn't help myself. I couldn't help myself enough, So I had that in my background. I've been to physiotherapy and I've been to all sorts of things. And so pain management was the kind of last ditch attempt. And she basically said, well, there's nothing we can do. Physical therapy just can't help you. So you just need to start using a wheelchair. And I just was gobsmacked that, oh God, I never thought this would happen. I'm getting my words all mixed up. But I never imagined that, I'd have to deal with something like this. And I didn't know whether I could deal with it. So the next thing that happened was just hours and hours of research on the internet, looking up people with my condition. And I found this thing that I'd never heard of called Hanna Somatics. And in this blog post, this guy was writing about something that he called the dark vice, which was exactly how I felt in my body. It's when you feel that you're tight at the front of your body, you're tight at the back, and you're tight or twisted in the sides. And I thought, oh my God, that is exactly how I feel in my body. It felt like every day, it felt like I put on a pair of tights that were 2 sizes too small and all twisted. It just felt horrible. And so I read this blog post. There was an exercise. I did the exercise and just got immediate kind of relief in my back. And I don't mean miraculous recovery, but there was a noticeable difference. So I just thought, God, there's something that I don't know. I don't know about this. And anyway, to cut long story short, I found out a little bit more and I trained in this modality of Hanna Somatics. And now that's part of what I do with people. So
and no wheelchair.
No wheelchair. Never even a suggestion of a wheelchair after that. I think there was just a reaction in me that was so strong that I felt that I could be helped, that this was in some way muscular, but no expert that I'd ever been to seemed to be able to put a finger on it. And I'd been told physical therapy is just, it's not going to work for you. We've tried it doesn't work for you. Nothing can be done. But Hanna Somatics does something different. When I discovered a little bit more about it, what really excited me about it was that it's working at the level of the brain and how movement works in the brain. Because we have, the body is mapped out on the brain, as you'll know. And, when we don't move certain parts of our body, and I had not moved. That was the thing. I'd hardly moved. Even though I did some yoga, anything was really, really, kind of difficult to do. And I just got to a stage where there were certain things like bending over I didn't want to do because it just really hurt. Reaching up was something that I didn't do because it just hurt too much. And then what I started to learn was that if you don't do movements, then what actually happens that at the level of the brain, those body parts may be represented quite closely next to each other, and they begin to kind of become just a block for the brain. So the brain can no longer differentiate the movement of, say, the arm and the shoulder. It just becomes one unit. And that was how my body was. It was just this one block, this one unit. So, so somatics really helps me to differentiate the parts of my body again and to move well and to live a normal, or fairly normal and meaningful life. I do still have pain sometimes. If I don't look after myself, I have to kind of on a daily basis.
Do the work.
Do the work, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, do the work, and do the work of different kinds. So I do my mindful movement, my Hanna somatics movements. I do mindfulness practice and breath. And then I also do just make sure that I get some cardio exercise so that I'm getting my heart rate up. And I'm trying now to do more strength work. So I like to think of that I'm having at least a couple of pieces of pie every day. Definitely the breath, definitely the mindful movement and cardio. If I don't do strength one day, that's okay. But yeah, that's my, I have to do it. I just absolutely have to do it, because if not, I do kind of regress quite easily into pain. So what, for example, if I get poorly, I just do tend to go down a little bit more quickly than the average person. But I know that about myself. My nervous system has been compromised. I do have an issue with my spine, a spondylolisthesis, which is a slippage of one disc over another. So it's kind of not in place. So my muscular balance is, kind of changing at all times. And what tends to happen is it just suddenly clenches me down if my brain somehow perceives that I've moved too far or whatever. So yeah, I'm constantly battling with this tension in the center of my body, but I do have a way to undo it and unwind it, which I'm thankful for and so grateful for.
Absolutely. I think that when you realize that mindfulness is so important, like not just for your emotional well-being, but for your physical well-being as well, right?
Yeah.
And I love the fact that you didn't resign yourself to the diagnosis that the wheelchair was the answer for what you were going through.
Yeah.
That you wanted something more for your life.
And it may have been, and people do end up in wheelchairs or are in wheelchairs, and they get used to, they accept that, and they're able to deal with it, and they have meaningful lives. And I may have done that as well, but I found a different way. So I'm just grateful that I was able to do that. So that was 7.5 years ago.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So I'm still going strong, and I do feel that I'm getting better. I'm getting better at managing myself, and I'm getting better at avoiding situations which will kind of bring on pain or stiffness and tension and stress and that kind of thing.
That's amazing. So what do you think is the biggest lesson that you learned from the experience?
Well, I suppose it's a couple of things, really. The first one is kind of about childbirth, because I had a pool in our lounge when I was pregnant, right at the end, and I just had this wonderful idea that I may be able to have a natural birth, and I may be able to have a natural birth at home. And, then my little boy would just suckle up to my breast in the pool. And, no way was it like that. But actually, even though what I had was not romantic in the slightest, it was still a really wonderful experience. And I'm actually very grateful for that experience, because it taught me a lot about just about bonding with a child, and about bringing that new person, welcoming that new life into the world. So it's kind of what you want and what actually happens are often two different things, and you don't really get what you want, but that can be a good thing.
Yeah, I think you get what you need.
Maybe, yeah. And that, I think I did need that lesson, definitely. And yeah, as for the other thing, to do with my pain and my body and my sense of worth, I think, it was just a struggle for a while, thinking I can't contribute in any way. I can't be a proper mum, and I can't work. And through this pain and through the really terrible situation that I was in, I've turned that around, and it's now become the work that I do. And that was another unexpected thing. So I guess, the lesson that I've learned is to make lemonade. When someone gives you lemons, then, learn to make a good lemonade, I suppose.
Yeah, I find that with the interviews that I've done so far, that it's interesting that for a lot of the women who have gone through a challenging time, that challenging time, whatever it was, is what helped them to be on the path that they are on today professionally. And so I feel like often these things happen and they're horrible at the time, but they're often course corrections. You know what I mean? They're pointing you in the direction that you're meant to be in. And so I feel like for the longest time, whenever I heard that everything happens for a reason, I would dismiss it and say, that's just what people say when you're going through a rough time. But I feel like now I feel that there is more truth to it, that it's not just a cliche, and that even though when you're going through it, you might not see the purpose and you might just feel that it's, the world is punishing you for some reason, or something like that, that it is for your own, it's for your best interest, that it is, whether you realize that 5 years from now, 6 months from now, or whatever, that you are going to see that there was a silver lining to that issue or that challenge.
Yeah. And I tend to think these days when there is a disappointment, it's much easier, having gone through those experiences, it's much easier to say, okay, well, that door is closed, or that doesn't seem to be working, so that's okay. What is working? What can we do? So it has changed my mindset.
Yes.
Definitely. So I do find problems much, much easier to deal with.
Yeah, it definitely puts things in perspective.
It does. Yeah, it does.
And so if there's somebody out there listening right now who is going through a challenging time with managing their pain, what kind of advice would you give them?
Well, I think one of the major things for me was to discover actually what pain is, and some of the science behind it, and kind of understand what was going on in my nervous system so that my pain made sense to me. Because it was kind of a big turnaround for me to go from being scared of bending over because it hurt to actually coming full circle and thinking, yes, but I need to bend because my brain needs that movement. It needs to be reminded that my body can do that movement. But when you're too scared to bend, there's no way you're going to accept somebody saying, can you bend over? So I think I personally needed that kind of background education. So there's a great book that I would recommend called Explain Pain by David Butler and Lorimer Moseley. And they kind of break it down and make it, for the layperson, as well as the professional, make it really easy to understand how pain happens in the brain and, how movement happens in the brain. So that would be a brilliant starting point.
Okay, I will definitely include that in the show notes so that anybody listening can find that book. And I think you mentioned another book earlier, and I'll link that one as well. Awesome. And I know that you've shared some video clips, some exercises for people to...
I did, yes. There's a series of breathing clips that I've just made. So they're audio guides on kind of 6 or 7. I've only done 6 at the moment, but there are going to be 7 breathing exercises, all different. And they have a kind of somatic flavour to them. And by somatic, I mean they're kind of feeling the breath in your body in maybe a different way that you might do in a mindfulness breath meditation or in a yoga meditation on the breath. So it's about an awareness of what the body's actually doing during the breath and kind of taking you on a journey around the body. And you can get some quite interesting sensations and moments of, oh, right, that happens. It's my clients find them really useful. So there's a series of audios, and together with it, there's an infographic as well, which I've sent to you, so you can share that with your listeners as well.
So so if you're listening in your car right now or on a walk, go back when you when you're ready and check out the show notes, and all that good stuff will be there for you. And any last thoughts or words of wisdom you want to share, Cheryl?
Oh my goodness, dear me. Well, I think the thing for me is just about having one conscious breath. So, anytime something is, you get one of those emotions where there's a bit of apprehension or a bit of worry or whatever is going on, to just anchor back to the breath, take one conscious breath, and it invariably, I might need more than one, I might need 2 or 3 or a couple of minutes worth, but just to begin with that one conscious breath, I can bring myself back and kind of ground myself and rise up and, kind of face whatever challenge it is that I need to face. And it's not always challenges. There's lots of lovely things that go on too.
Yes. Yeah, I think that sometimes we can get lost in the fog of the things that aren't going well and forget how much amazing things are happening in our life on a regular basis, on a daily basis, really.
Yeah. I think actually that might be my parting word of wisdom, is that, the brain is wired to kind of look for problems. We look for things in life that are not going right as a kind of survival mechanism. And when things are going well and when things are, it's kind of joyous and happy, we actually don't remember it as well. So we need to kind of physically stop ourselves in the moment and hold on to it and say, look at this.
Yes.
If this is not pleasurable, then I don't know what is. Paraphrasing the words of Kurt Vonnegut there, because I can't remember his exact quotation. But yeah, to really kind of put a Post-it note on that memory for your brain so that you're recording the good stuff.
Yeah, and enjoying the moment.
Absolutely. Yes.
I love it. Well, Cheryl, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your story and your wisdom. And again, for those of you listening, you can go back to the show notes and find out where to find Cheryl to learn more about her and what she does. And I'm sure we'll have social media links as well to connect with her online, as well as her website. So again, thank you, Cheryl. It's been an honor to chat with you. And for those of you listening, have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You're an inspiration. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.